So the RoHS Directive is a European Union directive that sets limits on substance content in electronic components. Okay, and I got my phone right here. These substances include, I can actually read out all of them, is lead, mercury, cadmium, hexavalent chromium, PBB, PBDE, DEHP, that's a phthalate by the way, and another phthalate, well, we've got 3 more phthalates here, BBP, DBP, and DIBP. And from what I understand, they are set at 0.1% by weight. So what RoHS states is that if a electronic component contains these substances above the set limit with 0.1% based on the weight, that's my understanding anyway, then the products are not RoHS compliant, and you cannot import or manufacture such products for sale in the European Union. Okay, so what this means is that, let's say that I want to sell this microphone or this wristwatch or this remote controller for whatever reason, then I need to ensure that I'm only, well, more likely my supplier, let's say in China, Vietnam, is only using RoHS compliant components. Because this is essentially, it really comes down to the component level. So I think RoHS, I think it dates back to 2004, something like that. And since then, RoHS has sort of become an industry standard. In fact, there are now RoHS regulations in the United States, I think in Korea, in India, in China, all over the world, really. Okay. So if we just leave, say, RoHS from a EU compliance perspective and just look at the supply chain, because essentially what you need to achieve is to ensure that your supplier that's manufacturing your electronic product, which is likely based in China or maybe in Vietnam, only uses RoHS compliant components. And as said, this is something that is really decided by your supply chain. What I'm getting to is that many components can actually exist as RoHS compliant or non-RoHS compliant. And I think some of you may actually have seen these little green RoHS labels that can be found on, say, these component boxes. Sometimes you can also see these labels on product packaging. These RoHS labels are not, I don't think there's even a mention of these RoHS labels, the green leaf and so on, or just a green label in the RoHS directive, at least not in the EU, at least in the original EU version. But the reason that these labels exist is for suppliers, okay? Both the producers and the companies procuring these components to distinguish between, okay, we've got the exact same component, but one batch is RoHS compliant, which would be more expensive. I can't say what exactly goes into filtering out these substances or not using them, using more expensive substitutes, I would guess, as compared to manufacturing non-RoHS components. But in any case, it really comes down to procuring the RoHS compliant components and make sure that your system doesn't get contaminated with non-RoHS components. And how you do this is that, well, ideally your supplier should be able to provide some sort of test report from their component suppliers, but ultimately you need to clearly communicate to them that you will arrange third-party testing. You will make sure that you verify compliance, and if it turns out that any non-RoHS compliant components have made it into your device, then they will not get the balance payment or the letter of credit release or something like that. Because that's really the thing here. Let's say that, I'm making phones. Well, not recommending anyone to get into that industry, but let's say that a single non-RoHS component gets into my phone, which consists of hundreds of different parts. Well, that would at least technically render my device non-compliant, or it could render it anyway. So you really need component control, which realistically you may not be able to have, and you may need to shift this, say, responsibility to the supplier, which in turn means that you need to inform them that they must only use RoHS compliant components, and you will verify if they have done so. Okay, so that's really what it comes down to compliance on a technical, on a practical basis. Other than that, you need some sort of documentation to verify compliance, and my understanding is that this could be test reports issued by the component producers. Not necessarily that you have to test the entire device again, or maybe you do a combination of the two, that maybe you can obtain test reports for 60% of the components that goes into your device, and then you test the remaining 40% for which you don't have any test report. Maybe that's one way you can do it. And if you can't, for whatever reason, which is not very rare, not obtain test reports for any components, then you would need to make sure that the entire device, meaning all components, are RoHS tested. That's really what it comes down to. But the RoHS Directive is not just about lab testing. RoHS is a CE marking directive. What this means is that CE marking is mandatory. That means the CE mark has to be on the product, and RoHS is essentially applicable to all sorts of electronic equipment and electrical equipment. It means that the CE mark is essentially mandatory for everything, be it something that goes into a power socket, or a completely battery powered device, for example, with say AAA or AA batteries. They all need the CE mark. Okay, and in case you don't know, then this is a CE marking directive, you also find requirements concerning declaration of conformity, traceability. That means, say, product name, importer, manufacturer must be mentioned on the label, batch numbers, and so on. And other than that, you also need to create a technical documentation. So yeah, the RoHS directive goes way beyond just arranging lab testing. Okay, so that's everything I have to say about the RoHS directive in this video. You can find more information about the RoHS directive if you read the article on compliancegate.com. If you have questions, you can write a comment on our website. You can do the same, of course, on YouTube. And if you want more videos like this, then I suggest that you subscribe. So that's everything for this video. Bye for now.